Today we're going to look at color pencil techniques. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the color spectrum. And you'll notice that my color spectrum begins with the color red. Here's where we're going to put the red. You're going to want to color your red area nice and solid, a good smooth coloration of red. We're using Crayola colored pencils for this project. Art 2, 3, and 4, you guys will be using Prismacolors. It might be a little bit tricky at times, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point. So now I have a smooth coloration of red, but we're going to move on to red-orange from here. The idea is we'll go from red all the way through the spectrum. So with red-orange, instead of me using a red-orange pencil, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my red and I'm going to let it slowly fade. Think back to your shattered values assignment. You want that coloration to start nice and rich and dark, and you're going to slowly fade it until there's nothing there. And we want to do this over the red-orange area. The idea is that we're going to have our red transition through red-orange and land on orange. So now that we have a smooth coloration of the red fading down for the red-orange, we're going to come in and color the orange section. Again, we want nice, rich coloration. And once we have that looking the way that we want, we're going to turn around and push these orange values across the red. So again, close to the orange, we want it nice and rich, but as it pushes away from the orange and towards the red, we want it to start to fade. You can see here, we have a somewhat smooth transition from red to orange. Now we're going to do the same thing for yellow-orange. So we have yellow and we have orange. One thing that I have learned with using these colored pencils is that your yellow is the color you're going to want to add last. So you'll see here I fade in yellow, but when I come over the green, if you really look, that green has a hard time blending on top of that yellow. Now we're going to continue this on from green through blue-green to the blue. And then we're going to do the same thing with blue-violet. So we're going to let that blue fade. And then we're going to let the violet take over. And then we're going to let the violet fade and let the red come in and stack up on top of that. So you have this transition from red all the way through the spectrum and ending at red-violet. The next thing we want to do is mix our complementary colors. When we talk about complementary colors, we're talking about colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So red and green are complementary colors. When you think about it, red is one of the primary colors, and green is made up of the other two primary colors, which are blue and yellow. So this makes them complete opposites. Make sure that you're using the true green color and not your bright green color. It's not going to do the same thing. So here we have our red and we have our green. Now we want these to cross over in the middle. So again, using the same techniques that we did when doing the shattered values, we want a smooth transition from our darker value to a lighter value of green as it approaches the red. It should fade out nice and smooth. Once we have that fade looking the way that we want, we will come in with our red color and we'll blend the other way. So we want to come in and have a lot more pressure at first, and we're going to ease up on that pressure until it fades in with the green color. Notice I come back in sometimes and build up some layers to make a smoother transition. Your transition may not look good at first, but just keep going back in and building it up. Now, by the time it gets to the end of the arrows, you really don't want to have much more blending going on. Try to smooth it out the best you can. Now you'll notice that a red and green color mix, because they are opposites, creates a sort of muddy color in the middle. We're neutralizing those colors by adding their complements. And you'll find in nature that a lot of our colors end up somewhere in the middle of our complements. Now we're going to do the same thing with yellow and violet. So on this video, I did yellow first because I still wasn't thinking about the fact that yellow should have been laid on top. You can see it had a hard time blending that purple on top of the yellow. So my recommendation is to do yellow last. Blue and orange, we have the same thing going. We have the blue going across, then we have the orange building up. And again, you can see between the blue and orange, you've got some nice muddy colors going on. Now the next thing we want to look at is color temperature. So starting with red, we're going to color the center area with the red. Again, try to make it nice and neat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be neat. The neater you do it, the smoother the transitions are between the colors. So I'm going to come in and really clean this up a little bit. Nice rich colors too. Don't lay it on too light. Now, we're looking at color temperature, so we want to create a warm side and a cool side. The warm side is going to combine red and orange. Now these are analogous colors. These are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. When you look at red, you have red-orange on one side of it, and the orange is going to be a warmer color. So we're going to let that red fade to the end. Again, just like we did with Shattered Values. I told you that was going to be useful. And try to get a nice smooth transition. And then we're going to get that analogous color and create a little bit of warmth to that red. We're adding orange on top of that red to create a red-orange fading into red. That red-orange is the warmer side of red. Nice smooth transition. Now we're going to do the cooler side of red. So you're looking at blues and greens for the cools. In this particular case, it's going to be red-violet. Violet has a lot of blue in it. So we're going to take this red and we're going to fade it down to the end, just like we did on the other side. Nice smooth transition. Notice I'm going back in and building in the smooth transition. I'm going to pump up the red a little bit more in the middle. And again, carry that through to create the smooth transition. And then we're going to come on top of that with violet. So very lightly at first, adding a layer of violet and allowing it to get darker and darker as it gets to the end. I'm going to bring back some red in here. Anytime you're doing color blending, it's a matter of push and pull. We can come in and push those reds back into it because we want this to be mostly red. You've got your red fading into red-orange for the warm. You have your red fading into red-violet for the cool, but it's still going to be part of the red family. All right, now let's do the same thing with our yellow. Now again, ideally you want to add the yellow on top of our other colors because these struggle to blend on top. But me, being the stubborn person I am, I just kind of went with it. Next you have blues. Let it fade smoothly. Add some green for the warm. And some violet for the cool. Now green is a cool color, but green has more yellow in it, and that's seen typically as a warmer version than violet. Now we're moving on to green, and we have added yellow green and blue-green to create the warm and cool. Now we're in orange. So we have yellow, orange, and red, orange. This is another one of those really weird ones because red is a warm color, yellow is a warm color, but if you put red and yellow together, red's going to seem like the cooler of the warms, I guess. And now we're on violet with red violet for the warm and blue violet for the cool. Now, we're going to come in with black. And we're going to play a little bit with the black too. Black does not have to stay a solid black. So we're going to create a little bit of red onto the warm side of black. And we're going to put a little bit of violet on the cool side of black. All right, now let's put all this to use. We have here an image that shows how to create a certain level of depth and roundness to an item. You can do just different values of that one color, but to be more successful, let's take a look at what we're going to do. So we're going to start with red. Now, if I start with red, I'm going to come in and add the warm temperature along the top. So you see me layering in this orange right now, and that orange is going to be built up with some red values, because this area is your warm temp, and that's what I'm doing. And we see red has a warm temp of red-orange. So I'm layering in the orange just in those areas for the warm temp, not all the way across, just in those areas for the warm temp. And I'm slowly just kind of building that up nice and softly, not harsh edges. You want soft edges because it's going to blend in with your other colors. We're going to go regular speed for this one, and we will build up that speed in your other spheres that we make. All right, so now we're going to go to the colored part, which is kind of the mid area of it, the meat of it, if we will. And we're going to layer up just the straight color of red. I want to pump some pure red into that middle area, but I'm going to layer this red on top of my orange because I don't want that to be orange. I want it to be red-orange. So I want to layer my red and my orange. Now I'm following the round form of the sphere. So there's no straight lines coming in there. We're sort of curving with the form. We're following the contours of the form. Softly blending those edges. It's really a nice technique to add some depth and make it more lively with your color, not so flat and dull and dead inside. It's going to be more colorful and vibrant. So I'm pushing a little bit more of that red in there, because after all, this is going to be a red sphere. Now we want to come in and grab some of that cool temp. And if you look at red, the cool temp is a red violet. So we want to layer in some violet. Now I'm mixing this violet in with the red. And you can already tell this is starting to cast down into a shadow and really make that form, that round form, start to pop. In quite a beautiful way, actually. So we're layering the red on top of that violet to make sure it's a nice red violet, and we're not going too stark into the cool colors. You don't want to jump from red to a violet straight up. You want to layer those colors and mix those colors. Now I'm giving a very, very light layer of red along the very bottom edge, because this is where our red and white will mix. And what's happening is you have this light source where the white of the ball is, or the white of the sphere is. That's where the light is shining down. But when you have a sphere sitting on a surface, that light sort of cascades around your object, and it has more of that warmth up at the top. And then it starts casting a shadow on the bottom. But the very, very bottom edge, what you're going to see is reflected light bouncing back up off the surface. And that's where we get that red and white color down there at the bottom. Now we're still kind of building up these layers because I want it to look nice and smooth and clean. I'm taking my time. And you see that very light edge on the very, very bottom. Now we're going to come in and do the shadow. So you're going to use the color and its complement. So if we look at red, its complement is green. Remember, complementary colors are the opposite colors. And what they do is they sort of neutralize those colors. It dulls down that saturation, so it's not such a bright, pure red anymore. It's more of a natural tone. And it works great for shadows. And oftentimes, the color of an object, depending on what surface it's sitting on, can be reflected onto that surface. But it's not going to be as pure of a color necessarily. And so neutralizing it with this complement can be helpful. So now I'm laying a layer of green on top of that red. And I can go back and forth between the green and the red, until I get a nice shade that I like. And I want to make sure I keep that white and red edge nice and precise, that reflected light that's bouncing up off the surface. I want that to stay. So I make sure to avoid all of that, especially with that green. You don't want that green anywhere in the sphere. That is strictly for your shadow purposes. Looking good. Alright, now we're going to come in with some white and just soften up these edges again with the white. The white's not going to do a whole lot, but it does leave a little bit of a soft layer on top of your color. And white can sometimes act almost like a color blender, but it does lighten your color a little bit. If you've ever used a color blender pencil, usually they're clear and they help smudge things. The white can do somewhat of that. All right, now we're working on the orange. We're going to build up those layers. So I came in with the orange first and I added the yellow for the warm part. I added a layer of red for the cooled part. Again, red is not really a cool color, but it is cooler than yellow. When we look at it, it does not pop out as much as yellow, so we like to think of that as a cooler color than yellow. So there's your orange done. Now we're going to come in with yellow. Again, yellow is a beast of a color to mix. You'll see it on this one too. I highly suggest adding your other colors first and then layering yellow on top of them. Remember to leave that white edge at the bottom. See right here, you can see adding that purple on top of that yellow was a hot mess. Okay, now we're going to come in with green. With green, you're going to add yellow for the warmth. You're going to add some blue in there for the cool part. Layer that green back on top of it. Leave a little bit of white at the bottom. And mix your green and red to create your shadow. Now we're into the blues. Nice soft layer of blue. You want to come in and give a little bit of green up at the top, a little bit of violet at the bottom. White soft edge. And mix your blue and orange to create your shadow. Next we move into the violet. Nice soft built up layers. A little bit of red for the warmth. A little bit of blue for the cool. Build up those layers of violet back on top. Leave a little bit of that white edge. And then you're going to combine your violet with its complement, which is the violet and the yellow. Again, it works better if you put the yellow at the end. And now we're going to come in with black. So we're working really lightly with the black coloration. We brought in a little bit of red at the top, a little bit of violet in the bottom, building up. Soften those edges where the white's coming in. And then I just kind of played around with the shadow. I sort of mixed a couple of complementary colors in there other than black. And there you have it. So this is what we're going to do in class.